Hi, and welcome to our 18th in a continuing series on the book of Shmuel, or Samuel, and the founding of Jewish monarchy. Episode 18. We complete our study of chapter 15 with many open questions. Is Shaul able to successfully repent? Is Shmuel falling into the same trap as Eli and closing the door on returning Shaul to God's good graces? We cite the brilliant textual clue from the mishbetzot Zahav to explain how the Amalek nation persists even after the death of Agag. We offer several answers for how Shmuel, a nazir, was able to kill Agag, which would render him taamei, ritually impure. Additionally, we cite many comparisons between our chapter and the book of Shmuel in general and Megillat Esther. I neglected to cite the important article from Professor Yitzhak Berger from which I learned much of this material. All this and more. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy the podcast and will consider sharing it with others.
Okay, so just by way of brief recap, most of chapter 15. So we had, very straightforwardly, this is, just so you're all aware, in, I think it's 2 weeks, this will be the Haftorah of Parshas Zachor. So we had the mitzvah of Shmuel coming and telling Shaul, okay, we've reached the point, right? There are 3 mitzvos that the Jewish people have when they enter Eretz Yisrael: to appoint a king, to wipe out Amalek, and then to build a temple for God. So we're up to mitzvah number 2. Now that they've appointed a king, we're up to Mechias Amalek, and that is sort of what Shaul dutifully does. He wipes out most of Amalek, but he spares what?
Agag.
Spares Agag the king and
The animals.
the animals. Which sheep?
Agag me with a spoon.
The best, the meitav, the best of the flock are what are spared. And once he does that, God says, "That's it. I'm done. I'm out. No good."
Incidentally, like symbolically, you think it would have made a difference if he had spared like the rattiest dudes to be like, let's kill like the rattiest dudes. Like maybe it would have been easier to wipe them out later on.
If he had spared, what do you mean? The
Not
worst
the
of the.
lousy animals instead of the greatest
Well,
animals.
it would have made it harder to argue later on that we spared them in order to offer them to God. When you spare the best, you're like, I spared the best. But the flip side of that is, well, did you spare the best to give it to God? Or did you spare the best to give it to you, and then you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar when Shmuel shows up?
Right, so that's the thing. If he had taken the lousy ones and been like, we're gonna shech these in a public spectacle to like just finish the job.
Right.
Like there, you couldn't have said, well, maybe you want to line your own pockets. Why would I steal the garbagey ones?
Right.
Like I want to make like I want to make a scene of this.
Right,
You know,
right, I hear.
like this is the end of these dudes. You know.
For sure. So then Shmuel comes and confronts Shaul, who comes out initially like he's done nothing wrong, right? He shows up and he's blessing Shmuel. Hey, I took care of everything just like you said. And Shmuel's like, well, what's going on with the sheep that I hear?
Did you see the thing that Rev Miller wrote?
No.
On this particular thing, or maybe it was Rabbi Frim. I think it was Rev Miller though.
Okay.
Specifically, Umea Kolatzona Baznai.
Yeah.
The idea with Mordecai and Esther on Purim.
Oh no, let's hear.
So apparently, there's a thing in Slichos, okay, that invokes this verse, and I don't remember how. I can find the source for you and like send it to you if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it mentions like Mordecai and Esther, and basically it's like, and it uses this pasuk. And it says Mea kol atzona ze ba'aznai. So like they're like, so what's the connection between Shmuel and like Mordecai and Esther, like, and Slichos?
Right.
Right? Like, why is this? So the idea that he brought down, I'm pretty sure it was in like either What's Wrong with Being Happy or What's Wrong with Being Human. I'm pretty sure, or
Okay.
yeah. But apparently the idea is it's used as an ironic echo in the positive. So like the Midrash tells that when the Gezer went out to kill all the Jews, Mordecai's sitting there learning like Seder Taharos with the children. You know? And Mordecai is Ish Yemini, right? He's from the tribe of Benjamin, right? So like Shaul's downfall is he thinks he's gonna, he thinks he's gonna be firmer than God, and he tries to make calculations. Okay, and Shmuel says, "Mea kol atzona ze ba'aznai." Like, what about the sound of the sheep that I hear?
Right.
So apparently the idea is when Mordecai is sitting and learning with the children, like the Gezerah goes out and he could have learned anything with them. Like the sugya that he's up to is Seder Taharos, which they didn't really have the Beis Hamikdash, they didn't really have any kind of shaykhs to that situation. Like he should have been learning laws of self-defense, laws of pidyon shvuim. There's going to be a massive bad thing happening. Maybe I should be learning these laws with the children. And he says, no. This is the sugya we're up to. Hashem has a reason that we're up to this sugya, and this is what's in front of us. I'm not going to make my own calculations. This is what we're learning right now. Mm-hmm. And so apparently the slichos goes, meaning like the sound of the children learning, what's going on? Like, now we have to save the Jews. Because now Mordecai's saying, I'm not going to put my own calculation in the mix. I'm trusting in Hashem. Okay. And now Hashem's responding with the exact same phrase.
Right.
To say, okay, you get the picture. Now we're turning things around. Now it's. I thought it was cool.
Yeah. No, that is.
I'll find it for you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. So Shmuel comes to Shaul and says, "Don't be firmer than God." Right. Hashem doesn't want your karbanos. He wants you to listen. One of the things we touched on briefly was sort of dealing with the morality of what's going on, just the ask to destroy the Amaleki people. We talked about what it's kind of challenging to understand what did they do. We're not the only ones to struggle with that. The Gemara in Yuma 22b has Shaul struggling with the same thing. So there's a copy for each of you. Mm-hmm. And I'll just read it through quickly. It's a short excerpt. So in our parak this week, it talks about Shaul camping by this Nachal, Vayarev Banachal. So the Gemara is going to tell you a story based on like an Agag reading of that pasuk, that Shaul came to the city of Amalek and he strove in the valley. What does that mean by Vayarev Banachal? Amar Revi Mani al Iske Nachal. So he's concerned with the matter of the Nachal. What is the matter of the Nachal? B'shash Amrlo Kadosh Baruch Hu l'Shaul lechvi kisas Amalek. When God comes to Shaul by way of Shmuel and says, "Go wipe out Amalek," Amar. So Shaul has difficulty with this. He says, "Umen nefesh achas Amra Torah hevi egla rufa." So what's the valley that we're talking about over here? It's the halachic concept of egla rufa, which is brought in a valley when there is an unknown murderer, right? Someone someone is killed. You don't know who did it. So you bring this calf as a way to be metakein for the murder. And so Shaul makes sort of an extrapolation. He says, when one person is killed, so you bring an egla rufa for such a thing. Kol hanafashus halolu. You want me to wipe out all these people? Al achas kama v'kama. I have to have pity on them, right? If the Torah is so makbid on the death of one person, how can I do such a thing? V'im adam chata, behema ma chata. So this is exactly the conversation that we had. Okay, so you want to tell me that the people are evil and they sin. What did the animals do that I should wipe them out? V'im gedolim chatu, and if the adults sin, ketamim mechatu. What did the children do? Like almost word for word our conversation. Yatsa baskol va'amar lo. The voice comes out from heaven and says to him, "Alti tzadik harbe." Don't be so righteous, right? This is also what we were saying. Don't be firmer than God. If God has a mitzvah for you, fulfill the mitzvah, and don't worry about the fact that your moral code doesn't necessarily understand. Your moral code can be subsumed by God's moral code, and then it continues, and this is along the lines of what we talked about the other medrash from last week that says that people who are merachim on those that deserve cruelty are going to end up being cruel to those who deserve rahman. So b'shash amrlo Shaul ledoeg, and then later on in the story we haven't got up to yet, but when Shaul tells Doeg, Sovat ha'ufaga ba'kohanim, go wipe out the city of Nov, Ira Kohanim, then the Baskel comes out and gives and mentions the second part of the pasuk. The first part is Altei Tzadik Harbe. The Baskel comes out and says Altei Rasha Harbe. Don't be overly wicked either.
Pasuk from King Shlomo, the replacement family.
Exactly.
The replacement royal family. Dude, you're doing it to yourself.
Right. Okay, so that takes us up through, I think it was pasuk 19.
Which is all this really does is doesn't answer the question.
No, it just shows that Shaul was grappling with the same murky moral issues that we were.
Correct.
Um,
But doesn't deal with the answer.
no, it does not deal with the answer.
Well, the answer is God said so. God says you got to do something. You got to do it. God told, who was it, Hosea, go marry a prostitute and have children
Yeah,
with her.
yeah.
Right.
Right? Like,
Right, but that's Agag.
no, that's psukim.
Right.
Well-
It is Pesukim, but most people say that never happened.
Right. We'll get to Hosea. I have plans for Hosea. Vayomer Shaul Shmuel. So in pasuk 24, so Shaul has been begging Shmuel. Okay, you're right. I messed up, chatasi. But let me save face over here. Come back with me. And Shmuel refuses. So Shaul grabs the hem of Shmuel's garment, which tears. And once that happens, so then Shmuel responds, Vayomer Elav, and this is pasuk 28, Vayomer Elav Shmuel Kara Adonai Mamlachus Yisrael Me'alecha Hayom Unasna L'Reacha Hatov Mimeka. So God has torn away the kingship from you, and he's going to give it to your friend who is better than you. Who's that?
David.
David. Okay. You guys are super smart because you've read the story before. I'm going to make an argument that that's actually somebody else. But we'll get to that when we compare the story to to Esther. That's the right answer. Okay, Vigam Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker, and also the Eternal of Yisrael does not. They translate here changes. Does not deceive V'lo Yinachem, and does not change his mind. Kilo Adam Hu Lihinachem, because he's not a human who changes his mind. The irony of this pasuk, the very thick irony, as Rabbi
God
Rava
changed
points
his
out.
mind about you as king.
Right. In other words, what he's saying is God does not change his mind about having changed his mind. Right? Now,
Good way of putting it.
yeah.
He
So
was ready to
Today,
change
people's
his mind.
front, not the people's front.
right? Okay. So
Closing April 6th.
I'll make one point here that I have not seen anybody else make, but to me, I think this is very powerful, which is essentially what I'm hearing out of Shmuel's mouth right now is Eli HaKohen. Eli was, if you remember way back when, he was the one that says, if you sin against God, then there's no forgiveness for you, right? And we talked about how that's not the Jewish approach, that no, you can do teshuvah. What Shmuel is essentially saying is, you cannot do, Shaul has just admitted his sin. In pasuk 24, Chatosi ki avarti es pi Hashem, right? That's pasuk 24. So Shaul is trying to do teshuvah. Shmuel here, in the nicest way possible to put it, he's doubling down on the mistake that Eli made, that Shmuel was specifically informed of, right? God was the one who told Shmuel, if we remember Shmuel's first prophecy, that this is the mistake of Eli. He was supposed to encourage his kids to do teshuvah. Here, Shmuel, you have the opportunity. Shaul is confessing. So help him get to the next step, which is, okay, go publicly and do something about it, right? You are the leader of the Jewish people. You have to make a public atonement for your sin. Help him get to teshuvah. Don't prevent him from doing teshuvah by saying, God will not change his mind.
Is in your Twice Told Tale series, do you have any parallel between this and Rebbe Elisha ben Abuya and Rebbe Meir?
No.
No? Okay.
No, but that's an interesting.
Hey, come back.
Right.
No, seriously, Rebbe, come back.
Right.
The boss call spoke. What do you want?
We do have. There's a Gemara that talks about. I can't remember the name of the Tana, but there's a Tana who says that before I was appointed to a position of authority, I would say anyone who tries to push me into like a government role, a position of authority, I would scream at them. I have no interest whatsoever. But now that I'm in a position of authority, anyone who wants to take me out of it, I would scream at them, right? And he gets it from Shaul, who didn't want to be king, and then once he's king, he refuses to relinquish it.
So maybe Shmuel's not saying you can't do tshuva. He's just saying You did chew in your last lesson, but you're not getting your job back.
Right.
That's really what he's saying. You're not getting your job back. Not Hashem won't forgive you.
Okay, I hear that, and I think that's a fair reading. V'gam netzach Yisrael lo yishaker v'lo yinachem. He's not going to change his mind. Doesn't mean he won't forgive you.
Right.
You can continue doing teshuvah.
But you can't be a king if you don't obey.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I hear that.
yeah.
That's fair. So Shaul continues. After hearing that, his response is Vayomer Chatasi. He again reiterates, I've sinned. Ata kabdenina neged ziknei ami v'neged Yisrael. Please continue to honor me in front of the elders of the people and in front of the masses of the people. V'shuv imi v'shtachavesi ladonai lohecha. And continue to come back with me, bow down before God. In other words,
No, and I will worship Hashem.
I'm sorry, yes. But the idea is that we're gonna do this together, so people see that oh no, the king still has the
Power.
confidence of the prophet, and therefore the imprimatur, yes, of God.
Nope. That's
So-
gonna be a hard pass.
So you would think that's Shmuel's response. Vayashev Shmuel acharei Shaul. So Shmuel followed Shaul back. Remember, the first time he said no. If before he ripped his garment, way back in 24. In Pasuk 25, so in 25 he asks him to do the exact same thing. Carry my sin, and I will bow low before God. Vayomer Shmuel el Shaul, lo ashuv imach. I'm not going with you. But now, I'm not 100% sure what changed other than Shaul ripped the garment, which Shmuel said, that means we're going to rip away your kingship. And somehow Shaul has convinced Shmuel no to turn around and actually go back and save face with him, which again I'm not
I would say
100%.
it's the second chatati.
The second chatati.
Right. That's what I.
Even after you told me I'm not, there's no way that I'm going to be completely.
Like the first one is like, maybe it's like a strained admission, like he gets it out of him, and now he's like, "You got me.
Mhm.
You know what? You're right. I suck. I made a mistake, and it's unforgivable. And like, hey, is there anything that we can do? Like, is there like, what do I need to do to go forward? Like with this, I'm part of the program. I get that I'm the lame duck candidate. Maybe
Right.
he accepted it, and maybe that's why Shmuel goes back to him. He's like, okay, you're the interim dude until I pick the next one. Like.
So you see this as a good thing that Shmuel changed his mind and went back with Shaul.
Yeah, that like it seems like maybe he has, or he saw real contrition in him, and he's like, okay,
Is there any other way to read that?
sure.
How else could you read that? Just conceptually, not from the text, but is Shmuel doing the right thing by going back with Shaul? And especially without demanding him to
Announce to
do
everybody,
teshuva, like hand over the crown.
yeah.
He's still
Right, like in those movies where he rips the epaulets off.
He's losing the Malchus, but he hasn't lost it yet. So
He hasn't lost it yet?
no.
Didn't he tell him that God abhors you?
Yes, but he's still king.
What would he have to say? I'm going to read 26 one more time. Vayomer Shmuel el Shaul lo ashuv imach ki ma'asta es dvar Hashem. You have rejected the Lord's command. V'imascha Adonai miyos melech al Yisrael. And God has rejected you. They have as the translation for ma'as. God has been disgusted with you, rejected you as king over Yisrael. That's not saying you're not king anymore.
Well, he's still, until God has actually ripped it from him, which he will. He's
So
still king.
that's what I'm saying. Why can't Shmuel right here and right now ask for the crown back? I anointed you.
Because that's the one because God is to do that.
Shmuel is the emissary of God. Who's more of an emissary? Like, other than having a hand come down and take the crown away, what
Or
more?
having somebody come over and kill him.
Which is exactly what happened.
Right, that's what happens. But you know what? I mean,
In other words,
Ishbosheth, succeeds Shaul at least for a little while.
this goes back to what we were talking about before. Can the king abdicate? You're saying no. The king cannot abdicate no matter what. Short of being killed, that's an act of God. Short of an act of God, you're king. Tough it out. It might be that God rejected you, that might stink. You might be considered a sinner, but brass tacks, you're still in charge. It's your name on the door, even though
Yes.
God has
Even though
rejected
you were
you.
fired, you've been given notice.
Right.
A lame duck.
Lame duck.
Lame duck.
Okay, I hear.
And if you read Pasuk Lamed Hey, it's clear that that's exactly it.
Okay. Okay, let's keep going.
Because Lamed Hey says that God he regretted appointing Shaul. Okay, he's still appointed.
Oh, that's interesting read. That's not how I would have thought, but that's a very interesting read. In other words, God regrets it, but by the same token, he has,
He hasn't killed him.
right,
He will.
right. Okay, fair. Vayomer Shmuel Hagishu Eli es Agag. We can't forget about the king, right? We've got the king of the Amalekites over here, so let's dispense with him.
Right. Oh, so that's the second reading. Shmuel could say in a
I came back with you.
in a very Godfather-like way. Today I settle all family business. You know.
Right. Okay. Hagishalai is Agag Melech Amalek Vayelech Elav Agag Ma'adanos. So Agag comes to Shmuel. How do you have? What do you have for Ma'adanos?
It's 30.
32. And Agag went to Shmuel.
Walk to him with stately steps.
Faltering stuff.
Faltering steps is from the
stately.
Targum. Stately is from the basic translation of Ma'adan is to be adorned. So stately is the exact opposite of what JPS has. What does Art Scroll have?
In chains.
In chains. Okay, so that's also from the Targum. They basically have the chains would be some sort of like royal chains. So not ball and chain, but golden handcuffs almost. I will offer my own humble interpretation, which is that ma'adanos, to be ma'adain, is to like beautify. That Agag came out adorned as king, like in his finest, in his finery. They tell, I don't know if it's a true story, but they tell this apocryphal story about I think it's Marie Antoinette when she was going out to be beheaded. She asked for a comb, right? If you're gonna go out like on top,
In style.
right? And then Agag makes another hard statement to translate. Vayomer Agag, and Agag says, "Achen sar mar hamaves." Bitter death is at hand, is what the JPS has. What else do we have for Achen sar mar hamaves?
Yeah, that's basically how it translates here.
Bitterness
But
of death is
right, but sar
Upon?
isn't that?
Yeah, has passed, right? Sar me'alai is to.
upon me.
So you right, but the normal translation for sar is that it's gone away, right? Has been should. The other way to remove this, to read this, is that death has been removed from before me. It's
Right.
not clear to me exactly what Agag means by this, and I think there's some intentional ambiguity over here.
Because the death is the permadeath is removed from him because he was able to procreate. You could
Okay.
say
That's interesting.
like he could be mocking him. Hey, death's removed from me. You can kill me, but I already already sent the light into the future to torment you guys later.
I hear that.
You know.
The difference between the two readings is, does Agag think Shmuel is going to kill him or not? When we have bitter death is at hand, that's a resignation to his fate.
Right.
Sar mar hamaves, like Mavis has gone away, is that's it. Like if I'm meeting with Shmuel, then we're establishing dignitary relations.
Is that sar like samech resh also how they spell like general or officer?
No, that's a sin.
Okay, just curious.
Vayomer,
It's like I was already said like, oh, I see the angel of death,
Right.
like the
yeah,
the officer of death, like
Right.
it's a homonym almost.
No, I hear that. Vayomer Shmuel, Ka'asher shikla nashim charbecha. This is a poem. As your sword has bereaved women, Cain tishkal minashim imecha. So shall your mother be bereaved among women. So I want to attribute the diuk to the right person. The mishbetzot Zahav has, to me, I don't know.
Okay.
A beautiful diuk over here. We mentioned the medrash that Agag was able to procreate in the time between he was captured and when he was killed. The reason for that medrash is because we're going to find there are still Amalekites later on in Shmuel, and certainly when we get to the Megillah. How do you have Amalekites if you wipe them all out? Answer: if you read this pasuk carefully, you'll see Shmuel knows that there are still Amalekites running around. Which Amalekite? The mother of Agag. Right? He says, just like you've bereaved women, your mother will be bereaved. How could my mother be bereaved if they've all been wiped out?
Right.
Answer: no, there are Amalekites other places that Shmuel is aware of, including Agag's mother. So he's saying, by killing you, your mother, who is still alive and out there somewhere, will also be bereaved.
Which then indicates more of a problem than what Shaul didn't do.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Shaul wiped out every Amalekite that was available to him wherever he was.
He didn't get them all.
Right.
He didn't get the mother.
Right, that's true.
How I killed your mother. Next on ABC.
Vayishasef Shmuel es Agag lifnei Adonai bagilgal. And Shmuel, what do you have? We get lots of fun words in this parak. What do you have by Yishasef?
It says here severed.
Severed, hack.
Yeah,
that's from Rashi.
Cut Agag down.
Cut Agag down. So Vayishasaf, I believe Rashi has as to quarter him, like the term draw and quarter.
Incidentally, Shmuel being a Kohen.
Oh no, not a Kohen.
What
did his mother promise he would be?
A nazir.
A nazir. Nazir is not allowed to become taamei. That's our next question. This question's
not a problem.
Well, he was a Kohen also, wasn't he?
No, he was a Levi.
Oh.
He's not Jewish.
So that's the first answer. This question to me is like the Beis Yosef's kasha on Hanukkah. Like, how many answers can you get for this one?
Yeah.
So the first answer is, at least according to most, if not, we'll say many authorities, a guy is not matame, the corpse of a non-Jew. So that's answer number one. Is that sorry? Let's back up. The question is, if he's a nazir, how can he kill Agag?
Because
then he's going to become
sword
taamei.
Goes in,
right? Then he becomes
he's
taamei.
attached to dead dude.
Right. So then he becomes taamei, which should be forbidden. Answer number one is he's not taamei because the corpse of a non-Jew doesn't impurify him. Any other answers before I give you some of the wacky ones? We'll say offbeat.
Could be like he had he threw it at him and chopped him in half, so it was
he quartered him. He quartered him.
Okay, so you know what? Maybe he threw a boomerang and he threw it one way, like a razor sharp boomerang, slashed him one way, slashed him another.
Okay, we'll give you that, which is an answer that they give for Shimshon. Shimshon has the same problem, right? So how does he kill all these guys if he's
is not makabel tumah?
Right. So one of the answers they give for Shimshon is that he didn't deliver the death blow. He killed them. He injured them to the point of death and then walked away as they died.
That doesn't work though.
Why?
A person who's mortally wounded is considered dead.
No, but he's not matame. Only the corpse is matame. You can mortally wound someone else without being makabel tumah.
Really? That to me seems weird because it's like a sick ratio.
Yeah.
If you mortally wound this guy, you're telling me he's not giving off tumah while he's doing the death rattle?
No, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Not until the neshama leaves. Otherwise, you could have like a gosis or someone who's on their deathbed is not matame. Their death is imminent, but they're okay.
Where's the pleasure in that?
It's not dead. Okay.
Not dead yet. Not dead yet.
So that's what do we have? Number two. Answer number three. You have a naseh that is docha los aseis, right? So
nice.
yeah, you have a mitzvah aseh to wipe out Amalek, and I guess Shmuel probably has a second mitzvah aseh that is, God told you to kill this person. So that overrides the that overrides the los aseh.
Right, like a mace mitzvah. Guess what? Even if you're a nazir, you're doing it.
Right. Rav Reisman has maybe Shmuel was wearing two sets of gloves, so that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Wait, it gets better. The one I think I like the most is he used a wooden sword.
Oh, it's
nice.
Wooden swords, not makabel tumah.
Very smart.
There you go.
Or, I mean, there are plenty of other materials that are not makabel tumah. You could use a glass sword or
Yeah, I guess.
There are
most practically in those times.
Prison inmates. Okay, prison inmates.
Sure.
I saw a video of a dude who was a prison inmate, and he was talking about like prison culture and true crime. He's like, "Give me 15 sheets of paper, I can make a weapon that will kill someone."
Wow.
It's all in how you fold it, is what he said. No,
It's
seriously.
origami. It's
Yeah,
origami.
like deadly origami. Like he's
That's
literally
amazing.
like, you can kill somebody with this.
Okay.
I'll show you how.
Okay.
15 sheets of paper was what he said.
Don't write him a letter, please.
Yeah. That's great. So Vayelech Shmuel Haramasa. So now Shmuel goes back to home base, which is in Rama. Shaul Allah El Beiso, and Shaul goes back to home base, which is Givat Shaul. Velo Yasaf Shmuel Leros Es Shaul Ad Yomoso, and Shmuel does not continue to see Shaul except maybe for one time where he does until the day of his death. Ki his Abel Shmuel El Shaul, for Shmuel is mourning, right? Mit Abel, he's grieved over Shaul. Va'Adonai Nicham ki himlich es Shaul al Yisrael, and God regrets, just drawing attention.
What's his concept of nicham?
Right, of God regretting is a very difficult thing for us to understand. I don't know if I pointed it out before. Shmuel, well, let's leave this question sort of unanswered for a little while. When God, we talked about this in the Bereshit Shir and in the Rus Shir, I think extensively. When God chooses someone, isn't that a permanent thing?
Yeah.
Right? For you to say, you are no longer king, I'm going to give it to your friend, how do we understand that? I thought that when we had this idea that when God chooses the Jewish people, he doesn't...
It wasn't Cain, it was Hevel. It wasn't this guy, it was that guy.
Right.
It was,
if you're chosen by
wasn't
God...
Yaakov, it wasn't Esav, it was Yaakov.
Right.
It
If you're chosen by God, that should be... We expect that to be eternal, no matter what you do. So God might regret it. He might not like how things have played out, but he doesn't cast somebody aside and say, okay, I'm picking somebody else. So that's as a conceptual problem, right? If we go back to corporeal election, that's a challenge, I think, to the whole notion. I wanna hold on to that question for a little bit, but I think it's worth letting it percolate. Okay, I think we talked a little bit last week, and I want to just maybe wrap up with this on the parallels between this parak and really Shmuel in general and the Megillah. So we have, I think I have a list printed out. This one. There are a lot of great resources on this. I have a couple of them for you over here. Jonathan Grossman's book, Gabriel Cohen, Adele Berlin, all go through a lot of the parallels. I'm just going to pull out a couple that are, to me, the most interesting. Let's see, where do we start? So maybe I'll start with asking you guys, what parallels do you see in either the chapter that we've just done or the story of Shaul in general and Megillas Esther? Any takers off the bat? So I'll start us off.
You could say that, so to speak, God appoints Haman as an officer,
Okay.
and obviously regrets it.
Right.
Um,
That's like Hamelech, right, as God rather than Achashverosh.
yes.
That's interesting. Just from the very outset, so we have the story that we have over here is about a Ben Kish, right? Shaul is Ben Kish, and the Megillah goes out of its way to point out that Ish Yehudi Haya b'Shushan Habiro Shmo Mordechai ben Yari ben Shimi ben Kish, right? So we also have another Ben Kish, and in fact we're going to have is Shaul, and the conflict there is between not Amalek but Agag specifically, right? Haman ben Hamdasa Hagagi. So the Megillah is definitely calling our attention to we're recreating the problem that Shaul dealt with, correct, and his failure, and we're looking to fix it in the Megillah. The way we go about doing that is really
somebody else do it.
Well, so no, we have someone else who
does it.
Achashverosh, but also Esther, right? Esther is
Achashverosh.
What do you mean?
Achashverosh is the one who executes him.
But he does so
through the plan of Esther, but it's the execution.
Yes, that's true. That's true for sure. That's true. There's a lot of interesting comparisons in the text, we get like between Shaul and Esther. So both don't talk about something that is key to their identity. When Shaul becomes the king, he comes home and they ask him, what happened, and he Ein Shaul Magedes. He doesn't tell his uncle that he became king. Esther doesn't tell Achashverosh that she is a Jew. Esther is warned by Mordechai, don't keep quiet at this time, because if you do, someone else will save the Jews, and va'at ubeis avich tovedu, you and your father's house. The father's house that we're talking about here is Kish, which is Shaul's whole family. Shaul is credited with staying quiet when all the people who rejected Shaul's kingship come and complain to Shmuel. What we have is the Shaul haya kamachrish, that Shaul remained silent. Both of them decree fasts in order to defeat their enemies. Shaul, when we're fighting the Plishtim, Esther, obviously, before she goes into Achashverosh. Both Shaul and Haman have 10 sons who are killed by their enemies. So
Shaul had 10 sons?
Shaul has 3 sons who are killed by the Plishtim, and 7 later. We're going to get to this in Shmuel Bet, so you have to hold on for a long time for this one. 7 more who are killed because of the Givonim. So Shaul, we're told at the end of this book, he wiped out the Givonim, and God makes a famine because of that, and David has to deal with this whole problem. So he hauls out 7 of Shaul's sons who are also killed to appease the Givonim. So in all, you have 10.
What about wasn't he assassinated?
Yes, but you have like the 3 and the 7 who are killed by the enemies, and specifically the non-Jewish enemies, versus the 10 sons of Shaul of Haman who are killed by the Jews. Interestingly, both Esther and Shaul, that would be Esther and I guess Yonatan. They each have these 2 feasts that are one day apart, where the angry king decides to kill his enemy. At the obviously the party with Haman and Achashverosh is where Achashverosh decides to kill Haman. With Shaul, it is Yonatan who has these 2 feasts, and he uses it as a Machar Chodesh, as a way to decide whether or not Shaul is serious about killing David. Correct. We're not going to get into. There's Amos Frisch has a whole essay on comparing the first parak of Malachim Aleph, where you have the rebellion of David's son, and you have Avishag, and how she is sort of lined up is similar to how Achashverosh goes and finds his the virgins that he wants for his harem. Both Esther and Shaul are described as beautiful, and maybe even more beautiful than other people. To me, there's 2 comparisons that he doesn't mention that I think are really the most interesting. So Mordechai, one of the questions that I've had in the Megillah that I've not seen anyone address, and I don't know that I have a good answer to, but I'll share it with you anyway, is everybody in the Megillah asks somebody else what to do. Achashverosh has his advisors, Haman has Zeresh, Esther listens to what Mordechai tells her. The only person who doesn't seem to ask anybody's advice about anything is Mordechai. And given we're gonna assume the Gemara's chronology versus
that falls nicely because Shaul doesn't read.
Shaul asks everyone.
Shaul
asks. Shaul is always seeking to find out what to do. The one who doesn't ask anybody what to do, Yonatan. Yonatan, remember, goes out to fight the Plishtim without asking anybody. He just assumes the will of God. He assumes, okay, if this sign.
Also.
Shmuel is always told by God what to do.
He's told, but he doesn't ask.
He doesn't need to if he's told.
So wait, keep going.
Mordechai could have asked. Mordechai is either he's part of the Sanhedrin. He could at any point Mordechai could either convene, give me the Zakanim, or send a note. At least according to the chronology of Chazal, this is a period where there are still prophets around. Right. Go ask Zachariah or Malachi, like, what should I do in this situation? Mordechai doesn't do that, because Mordechai is very much like Yonatan in this last point, which is what I had mentioned to you before. When Shmuel, to the novice reader, I know you guys are all experts, but to the novice reader, when Shmuel says that the kingship has been taken away from you and given to your friend who's better than you. Who could we possibly think that is in the story other than Yonatan? Yonatan is the one who's done everything right. Yonatan's the one who's being contrasted with Shaul, and the expectation of the reader the first time around is, okay, Yonatan's going to take over for you, right? That makes a lot of sense, but somehow Yonatan is overlooked, and now we get a new character in the next chapter, David, who takes the kingship. In Megillas Esther, you have the whole subplot of the assassination of Achashverosh, right? Mordechai is the one that discovers it, and they tell Achashverosh in the name of Mordechai. And then the next parak Gimel, I forget the pasuk inside, but it's essentially, so after all these things, Gidal HaMelech Achashverosh, so Achashverosh appoints over everybody else, and you, the reader, are expecting, who's he going to appoint? Mordechai. Right. Mordechai just saved his life. Of course he's going to appoint Mordechai. No, Gidal HaMelech Achashverosh as a new character that you've never heard of, Haman ben Hamdasa. We're not told why. We're not told any reason. And Mordechai is, again, overlooked the same way Yonatan is overlooked in our parak.
Are you then comparing David to Haman?
No, not David. Right. Yeah, you have to be careful how far you take that. Yeah. Okay, I think we can. I think we're good. I think we can stop over here.
Shkoch.
Yeah, sure. We'll pick up chapter 16 next week, please, God.
That's it for now. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Please consider sharing this recording with others, and now's a great time to listen to the next one.